Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
And hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. That's because I make it that way. When I get up in the morning before my feet hit the ground, I already decide it's going to be a groovy day. And guess what? It turns out that way. It turns into the grooviest day. It was even groovier than the day before. Now, something might happen, something might change, but I just always think back and it's magic. I can turn it around. I can stop and pause and just let it be. And you know what? The solution, the problem solving idea will just pop into my mind and it turns out to be groovy. So you can do it too. Try it. You'll like it. Mikey does. Mikey liked life cereal. You can like this too. Start your day. And you can pick any word. It could be anything you want. As always, I have my groovy co-host with me today. Her and I just have a blast every Tuesday. And we create these really cool videos and podcasts. We invite some top-notch speakers and leaders, authors who are on the cutting edge of their own becoming, sharing their messages to inspire you. At least maybe plant a seed that you can let grow for a little while and come back to and bear its fruit. So that's why Jackie and I show up every Tuesday. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Boy, I'm feeling kind of long-winded today. Am I just rattling?
No more than usual, Todd.
Oh my goodness. So how are things at the Speak Feed Lead project?
Oh, we just keep on chugging along here in our little train of life. And we've got classes open now for all of our courses. Some are starting this week, some are starting next week, some are starting a little further down into October. So there is no excuse. You need to get your children, your teen, yourself into one of our courses if you want to have a more powerful voice out in the world, or if you want your children to as well. We've got a summit coming up on October 26th, where several of our students are going to be speaking on the Health, Wealth, and Wisdom Summit for parents. And we're excited about that and all of the messages they're going to be bringing to the world.
Your kids are being exposed to international stages, right?
They are.
They're worldwide, and it is. Can you imagine being a kid speaking to a worldwide audience? I just can't imagine what that would be like.
It's really cool. That is one of the benefits of the pandemic. And our guest is going to talk a little bit about how Zoom impacted his ability to write the book he did today as well. But being able to speak on these virtual stages is what's allowing them to do this, because before the pandemic, I had to think, how would I get these kids around the country to speak on these stages, to have opportunities to speak? And it was a little bit beyond what our capabilities were at that time. And so all of a sudden we have this pandemic that keeps us all at home. We figure out how to still communicate and connect with each other. And boom, so many people start having these summits. In fact, there's probably 10 summits a week that I personally could attend if I wanted to. And so there's lots of stages out there for anybody who wants to speak about just about any subject.
Well, I was going to say that too, because the speeches that these kids are delivering in the presentation, I should call it a presentation because it's probably not a speech.
Not always.
But they're not. These topics aren't coordinated, I guess was the point I was getting at. These are things that are important to them, and you teach them how to speak from their heart about these things and portray a message that impacts people.
Well, yeah, I mean, like this summit, the Health, Wealth, and Wisdom Summit. I send out an email to my kids. I call them my students, but I call them my kids. And I'll say, here's the summit coming up. Who wants to speak on this? Who wants to take part? and I will have them step forward and go, yeah, I have a story. I have something I could tell about how to be healthy. I could tell a story about what real wealth is. It's not just about having money. It's about having a healthy body. It's about having a healthy mind. It's about taking care of yourself and being part of a time management system that allows you to get everything done and not feel stressed out. These are kids that are coming to me saying this. And so then they personally get together with me and I say, okay, what are the stories that you can tell about what you want to talk about? How do we deliver this better so that it connects with the audience and really gets people to feel the emotions you're feeling and the solutions that you offer and how they can get, to do the same thing? Can you offer them something or give them some tips? So these kids just kind of work through, after I've asked them questions, they figure it out and they put it together themselves, because now they realize that someone's going to be listening to me. I don't have to rush through it. I don't have to just use a few words. I can actually speak on this knowing there's an audience out there. Yeah. They're interested in hearing what I have to say because they signed up to be here when I'm speaking. And it just is so magical for them to realize people want to hear them. It's not just like mom and dad saying, okay, everybody be quiet. She's got something to say. It's more than that. It's people have signed up to hear me talk. I mean, that's pretty empowering for kids.
Yeah.
To feel that sense of value.
That could be, you know what, Jackie? You and I have been on the stage many, many times, and I can say it like this. That can be very addictive, can't it?
Oh, gosh. I remember the first time I was paid to speak. I was asked to go to a dental conference because I was in the dental field at that time. And I went to this dental conference and they gave me two 90-minute sessions that I had to speak at during this day. And after that day was done, I was on such a high. I just felt like, oh my gosh, I have got to do this again. It was really exciting. So you're right. Once you start sharing your message and you get that energy back from the audience, it is a drug. It definitely is.
I'm gonna make a prediction. I predict that one of your students is going to end up being the president of the United States one day.
I hope so. That's great advertisement.
Exactly. Well, it might take a little while though.
Right.
I want to remind our listeners that today's show page and everything about our guest is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer. You can go there and in links. We already have a link there, and you're going to want to find out more about our guest today. Jackie and I's book is both there. I have my book, 6 Keys to Life Mastery. The link, there's Jackie's book, Self-Centered Leadership. I think she's in like 10 books now, 10 or 20.
Yeah, I don't have a copy yet of the book that launched last week, but it's coming. It's still on Kindle right now.
She's on fire writing stories and compilation books, but the links are there, and we'll get Jackie's new link up there as soon as it gets published.
Check it out on Amazon. No Problem Parenting. Raising your kiddos with more confidence and less fear.
Make sure you're going to put that link in our newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can also sign up for our newsletter at our website, www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer. And Jackie creates a nice newsletter that goes out once a week. It highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and of course, her blog post about the guests that we just had on the show. So it's very informative. That's all we use that email for, is to send you that newsletter to keep you up to date on Life Mastery Radio. And our guests are really cool guests on the cutting edge of their own becoming, here to inspire you and plant some seeds. I'm working on that, Jackie. I'm working on that tagline. But I think that we have cleaned house enough so far. So I think today this guest is yours. So that means
it's down to business.
You get to introduce him. So take it away, Jackie.
And it's exciting day as we're talking about books. This is the official launch day.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Book, and he's here on our show today. What a celebration. I should have had some balloons or something.
I'm feeling kind of special.
Yes, absolutely. Well, today you get to hear from Howard Brown. Howard is an author, as I just mentioned. His book is launched today. He's a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, an interfaith peacemaker, 2-time stage 4 cancer survivor, and now a healthcare advocate. He is the author of his new book, Shining Brightly, a memoir of resilience and hope. Whoop, whoop. Howard has become a nationally known patient advocate and cancer whisperer to many families. For more than 3 decades, Howard's business innovations, leadership principles, mentoring, and his resilience in beating cancer against long odds have made him a sought-after speaker and consultant for businesses, nonprofits, congregations, and community groups. He was a pioneer in helping to launch a series of startups and co-founded 2 social networks. His hard-earned wisdom about resilience has led him to shine brightly, and we are going to be talking a lot about how you do that today through any challenge you face. Please welcome Howard Brown. Woo-hoo! Welcome and congratulations on your book.
It's an exciting time and I'm spending it with you and I'm thrilled. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to your audience, wherever you are. Big fan of Life Mastery Radio. This is just, thanks for having me. It's exciting times and thrilled to be here with you.
We are delighted and excited. Yeah, we're delighted, excited, and ignited that you're here too. So give us a little background, Howard. I mean, you're especially, it's so inspiring when somebody overcomes adversity, and you did it twice. And maybe highlight those couple of stories, or briefly let us know about that, because that is truly an accomplishment that other people need to hear about, right?
Well, you can keep things private, and I respect that. Whenever you hear, if you heard the C word, even 10 or 20 years ago, you actually thought death. And unfortunately, in the stage 4 cancer world, we still hear that. But I shared my story broadly, widely, as a point of inspiration. Now, did I share every detail of my sickness, my depression, my steroid anger? Absolutely not. Everyone has enough to deal with on their own. But I feel, as we talked in our green room, blessed, grateful and lucky here to be able to spend time with you today and then to share with others. And it's very hard to do the quick summary, but I'll do that for our audience right now. But at age 23, I was knocked down, and we all get knocked down in life, right? So whether it's divorce, it could be addiction, it could be job loss, it could be bullying. There's so many ways to get knocked down in this life, and cancer knocked me down to my core, not once, twice. And at age 23, when you're told to get your affairs in order because you have stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it's very aggressive, and I kept failing chemotherapies, I had no idea if I was going to make it or not. And I have to tell you, in 1989, I was a complete deer in the headlights. I had no clue. I was a strong young man, athletic. My career was booming. I just got promoted, and I just got cut down. And I have to tell you, I felt depression. I definitely felt denial, and I had no clue. And remember, this is a busy signal. We had landlines, no cell phones, no computers to speak of, no internet. My dad actually went to the library and checked out a book on cancer and on leukemia, blood cancer, and lymphomas. I mean, went to the library and checked out a book on that because we didn't know. And we started asking around to friends and family. And it just took, and again, also for me as the patient, it takes families down. I moved back home with mom and dad at age 23 and a half because I didn't know where to go. I'm living in Dayton, Ohio. And the best hospitals we think were in Boston, and I went to Boston. So there's stories in the book, but it was quite an episode because we couldn't even figure out what I had for many.
And what were some of the symptoms, in case someone's listening and they don't know what could they be looking for? So what are the symptoms that you were noticing before?
I actually now think about this, but I actually had on my ear and cheekbone a little red mark that grew bigger and bigger to the size of a purple golf ball. And I wore glasses at that time, and my glasses did not fit straight on my face. And thank God it showed, because if it didn't show, probably we just would have keeled over eventually. But it did, and it showed, and it took a lot of time to figure out what it was. And I had no idea. And my dad took me to a local community hospital out in the suburbs of Boston, where I grew up in Framingham and Natick, Mass. and they didn't know. And I went there twice. And then I was traveling. I think I was in Florida making sales calls, and I was making excuses. I got hit playing basketball, weightlifting. I just hit myself with a weight. I was totally just making it up because I had no idea. Meanwhile, and behind the scenes, my parents are freaking out. They had no idea either, and we had no answers, waiting for that phone to ring. And finally, I get summoned back to Boston. And I go to this local community hospital, and they say, you have an appointment at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, one of the international leaders in cancer research. And then I was like, oh, something's up.
Is that the first time you heard the C word?
I heard the C word about myself. We drive into Boston about 25 minutes. We're waiting in the waiting room. And the Dana-Farber is known for pediatric cancers as well as adult cancers, but they have something called the Jimmy Fund. I went to the adult side, and it was all old people. I was 23 years old. Everyone was old to me. So what I did is I walked down the hall and I hung out with the kids, because they were kids playing and drawing and having a piece of candy. And then they had to come find me. And after testing and things like that, I was brought into this Dr. George Canellis, who invented chemotherapy for lymphomas. I didn't know that at the time. And he had this big mahogany desk. And behind him was this Dr. Eric Rubin, a young Harvard fellow, really bright. And then to my left sitting was my mom and dad and me, and I'm in a gorgeous suit. My dad's in a suit. I mean, we're like, going out to, the theater. And he basically started talking, and he said, you have stage 4 accelerated T-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and blah, 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 Charlie Brown. I didn't understand anything. It was like, what are you talking about? And I looked up at this guy, Dr. Eric Rubin. I was like, what is he saying? Am I going to die? I mean, I had no idea. I look back out of the corner of my eye. My mom is sobbing. My dad is like a statue. And I had no idea what was going on in that room. It was just crazy. I mean, we're going to do more tests on you, and you're going to come back, and we're going to do chemotherapy via infusion. I didn't know what any of that was. I was devastated. And I had started to have many talks with Dr. Rubin, but also I had to learn about this. You had to learn. You had to actually accept responsibility. And that did not happen quickly. And then I leave there that day, and I come back and I do chemotherapy, but they told me I couldn't do chemotherapy because my liver function was too high. So Eric Rubin, in his God-given wisdom, tells me to go to a cryogenic center. Why did he do that when he told me I was going to die, basically, or they didn't know if they could help me? And he said, go on a field trip, go to the sperm bank. And I was like, what am I doing here? He goes, what else are you going to do today? And that's all he really said. He's just sort of said, you're on your way home. It's on your way home. It's 15 minutes away. Go do that. I have an appointment for you in an hour. So I did. And I didn't know why I was doing it, but because I'm on the front lines there, not knowing if I'm going to live or die. But thank God I did. We'll get into that in a second. So I start chemotherapy the next day. Within less than a week, I'm bald. And for a guy, it's okay. But I went to my high school reunion a month later, and I felt like dead man walking. I heard the whispers. Howard's not going to make it. Poor bastard. That's what guys do, tell you. They're not pretty raw about it. And I'm 5 years out of high school, and basically out of, just graduated Babson College. And I'm basically not knowing if I'm going to live or die. And things got worse because I was failing each chemo regimen. Things were getting worse. They were trying new recipes on me. And, my lay explanation of cancer is it's something called mismatch repair. Your cells reduplicate billions.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.
25% for bone marrow transplantation, which was fairly new back then, but bone marrow completely new.
Matches,
and she was an exact
gift of life programs. It's 1 in 25,000. It's like hitting the lottery. I hit the lottery not only with my sister's bone marrow. She is a saint. CJ Brown Gingras. She's such a lovely person, and I would do the same for her. But she gave of her own bodily fluids to save my butt.
But no detrimental effect to her in doing that, right? I mean,
yeah, her hips were a little sore. She did aerobics 3 days later. But quite frankly, when you take a body part, a heart, a kidney or blood, and you put it in someone else, you can, it can not work right away. It can not work over time, or it can work. And in my case, God willing, it worked.
And how long? I'm just curious. I don't want to get off in the weeds in this, but how long did it take before they knew it was a good match, that it worked?
So you create blood and new cells all the time. So they put it in me, and they basically kept me in isolation because I had no immune system. I was very susceptible. So I was in isolation for 34 days, and they watched and took blood and watched the system grow. And it's old school now. This is now 33 years ago. So they don't do it that way. They don't do it that way now. But for me, it worked. And I got a little what's called graft versus host disease, which is just enough. But her immune system became my immune system, and it defeated the bad batch of brownies.
And so your entire lymph system was okay, and
everything hit reset. Everything got rebooted. It's like restarting your computer. Everything reset. I did a clinical trial of like the grandfather of immunotherapy called interleukin-2 to strengthen my immune system and my cells, my killer cells. But it worked. If you had to say, after all the chemotherapy and full body radiation I went through, and a lot of it didn't work, I asked my doctors. The bone marrow transplant from my twin sister was the key defining moment of why I'm alive from cancer 1. Yeah.
And then it was like 23 years later, and because you made a deposit in the bank, you were actually able to have a kid.
Well, you got the timing wrong just slightly. So it was 11 years later.
11.
After I got better, and they check you for every quarter for 2 years and then 1 year, and they keep tabs on you. After 5 years, that's considered remission. They'll never say the word cure, but it's remission. So I actually moved out to California. I needed the sun, the beach, the waves, and I needed to start anew. I basically was putting Humpty Dumpty version 1.0 back together again. I was 136 pounds. I was bald. I needed to get my career, my confidence back. I needed to get back to my happy place of playing basketball the first time. And I moved to California, Southern California. And I went back to work, and I was working very hard at putting myself back together, recovering emotionally, physically, financially, money in the bank, and building new relationships and building my confidence. And that's called survivorship. And there is no blueprint. You actually have to kind of be in charge of yourself there. You know, you can get help from others, from support groups and friends, and lots of ways to do that, you know, in the gym, in nature. But I got myself back together, and I ended up going to a Jewish community function, and I met my wife of now 28 years, Lisa, from Michigan originally, but I meet her in Southern California, this beautiful girl, Lisa Naftali from Michigan. We start dating, and we got engaged, and we got married overlooking the Pacific in the most beautiful ceremony. It's in the book, the pictures, under a Jewish wedding canopy called a chuppah, the Pacific Ocean, the sun gleaming off the ocean. It was amazing. And then, yeah, it was, it's they call it a Hollywood Hallmark wedding. It was incredible. I was working actually in the broadcast entertainment space at the time. And then I got pulled up to Silicon Valley, and Lisa and I decide to make that phone call to go get that sample that's been on ice for 11 years. Now, that's medical technology for you. So Lisa had to grow 8 eggs. They basically judged which the best 4 were. They defrosted the swimmers. They picked the best ones. This is called ICSI and in vitro fertilization. They injected them in, put them back in Lisa, and we watched them grow. And one became this amazing, beautiful daughter, Emily, healthy baby girl born on August 20th, 2001. I mean, another miracle. And that's why the chapter on Emily is called Miracle Girl. I mean, a bone marrow transplant to save my life, and then frozen sperm 11 years later. That's 2 miracles. Yeah. I'm hitting the lottery right here.
And she can claim to be a test tube baby, right?
That is actually called a test tube baby. Todd, you are on the money.
Wow. Wow. So then why was that necessary then? Because did the cancer destroy any probability that you would be able to father a child later on? Is that what the reason was for that?
If that day that I actually didn't go to the sperm bank and I actually did chemotherapy,
I would be adopting and finding other ways of surrogacy.
Okay.
I was considered the amount of chemotherapy, the amount of full body radiation made me infertile. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I just never thought
I am
about
to
that
this
before. It
day.
makes sense. I just had never had that conversation before. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I am to this day. And but she's now, Emily is going to graduate University of Michigan this year. She's amazing, amazing, going to make a huge impact in this world. She's big environmentalist and nature, and climbs mountains and jumps out of airplanes. And she's great. She's a terrific writer. And
Yeah, I read a story in your book about her wanting to climb a mountain, and you wanted to tag along, and she warned you and warned you and warned you, and you said, "Nah, I can do it. I got it. What a great story that was." And these are all stories that you put in your book.
Yeah, so we were on our cancer vacation to St. Lucia. We finally got to come up for air. This is after cancer number 2 and colon cancer, stage 4 colon cancer. And we got a getaway. This is before COVID. This is in December of 19. I had just started the book. And we went there, and in St. Lucia, it's gorgeous. It's amazing. And so you can climb one of the 2 pitons. And again, this isn't like a huge 11,000 or 14,000 foot mountain that she normally scales in peak bags, as she calls it. This was probably a couple hour hike, zigzagging up and scrambling on rocks. It wasn't a straight path. And anyway, so she says, "Dad, you don't have to do it." We went up with another couple from Chicago and a guide and a walking stick. And the pace that we set was way too fast. So I had to take breaks. Also, I had a bunch of coffee in the morning, and my stomach wasn't feeling that great. But I came up 20 minutes after they made it with the guide with me in tow, and someone handed me an ice cold Piton beer, and I cheers, and there's a picture of it in the book.
Yeah,
I made it. It was such a big deal to make it with my daughter, to do something that she was passionate about, and to be able to say I could make it. It was hard, but you got to push yourself. Getting out of your comfort zone, that's resilience building. That's mental toughness. That's physical toughness. I am so glad I made it to the top, because going downhill wasn't such an easy thing. My legs were killing me for days.
That was after your second bout. So yes. I guess in reading your book and understanding this, these 2 cancers were unrelated.
So not exactly. Again, what they're learning now is that folks that had as much chemotherapy radiation with me, and they didn't know it at the time, they were trying to save my life in 1990 and 91. And I ended up, if I would have got screened for colorectal cancer, this is a big warning to our audience, go get your colonoscopy or go to get a Cologuard test or a FIT test. If you're 45 now, it's the screening age. The screening age
lowered it.
Was 50.
Yeah. And
I didn't have any symptoms. But if I would have got screened at age 40, we wouldn't be having this conversation. They might have clipped a polyp and I would have been on my way. But they didn't. And 8.5 centimeters it took 8 to 10 years to grow in my cecum, which is the connection point between my large and small intestine. And in my colonoscopy, I woke up, my wife's holding my hand. I look, "Hi, Lisa." And I look at Dr. Phil and I say, "Doctor, is everything good? I'm in great shape. Everything's good. I feel good." He said, "No, I found something pretty high up. And when I find something, I mark it. I take a piece of it to go to pathology, and it's usually really bad news." Well, it was bad news. Stage 3 colorectal cancer, specifically colon cancer. Within 10 days, I had 13.5 inches of my colon plus margin plus lymph nodes removed. A few weeks later, I had a chemo port put in, which I still have for surveillance. And then I waited an extra couple of weeks because my daughter had national championship soccer tournament in Texas that I wanted to go. And I started chemotherapy. And unfortunately, I failed the chemotherapy, the first line of chemotherapy. Wow. And it didn't work. And the cancer grew outside of my colon. I had another colon resection in March of that 17. And then I did a clinical trial. That didn't work. And I'm down at the soccer national championships in Dallas, and I'm feeling pretty bad. And I can feel things in my rib cage. And my wife calls my doctor, Dr. Rich Zeckman here at Beaumont Hospital, my oncologist, and he says, "Go over. I have an appointment for you now over at Baylor Hospital. I'm down in Dallas, about 45 minutes. I said, "No, I got to watch the soccer." I said, "I'll get over there in a couple hours." And this other soccer mom who was a former nurse and another soccer mom, they took me over there. And this hospital didn't have an emergency room. I was like the only patient. They thought it was my gallbladder. They did an ultrasound, they did a CAT scan, and they did all these blood tests right away. I was like, the big patient there.
And I called back, they took me back. I got some lunch. I wasn't feeling great. I called to get my results, and you're supposed to give your patient results. It's your right. They said, call your doctor.
Yeah.
So I called my Dr. Zekman, and he basically said, you got to get home. I said, wait a second. We have the semifinals. It's Saturday and Sunday. What are they going to do? He goes, you got to get home. Things are bad. You are now metastatic stage 4. It spread to your liver, your stomach lining called peritoneal momentum, and your bowel. He goes, things got really worse. And I didn't want my daughter's, I didn't say a word to her. She said she knew. I didn't say anything to except for a few of the team moms. And I flew back on Sunday night and went to Monday to Carmanis Cancer Hospital. They took me off the clinical trial. They confirmed I was stage 4 metastatic. And being 53 years old, again, told to get my affairs in order, that I had less than a year to live without chemotherapy. And that this time I'm a dad, and I'm like, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate high school. I'm not going to watch her grow up. And I asked the doctor there at that time, I said, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to Google it. What are my chances? He's like, single digits, 4% chance of living 12 to 18 months. He goes, but they're going to try stuff. And I said, really? I said, what are my chances? And he wouldn't answer me. But then he said, rarely do people survive this. And I sat there in a room by myself, and again, although I was a Marine on a mission and I had cancer before, when you hear those devastating words, you gotta, you get knocked down. I mean, I was to my core beaten down. The next day I go to my main oncologist, and my wife is on my left. My sister, twin sister, saved my life, is on my right. My mom is on FaceTime. And everyone was crying around me. They just said, I'm sorry. What can you say? And my doctor just said, listen, we're going to try a salvage, a Hail Mary. We're going to try a Hail Mary on you. And imagine this. We try the Hail Mary, and I get a little regression, or as George Costanza on Steinfeld will say, shrinkage. That was the best news I got. I got a little shrinkage, regression in cancer in the tumor size. And for that, you get 4 more cycles of chemotherapy. Now, at that time, this is the digital world now. There's a support group that I joined called colontown.org. There's Blue Hope Nation. There's resources in the digital world. And my wife joined as a care partner. And I started to talk to patients that were looking for that Hail Mary as well, and had this massive surgery called Cytor reduction HIPAC, where they basically cut you open from, they call it the zipper cut, from your chest down to your pelvic bone. And they go in there, and they basically, if you've ever had branzino fish and they debone the fish, they basically take out any live or dead cancer cells. And the experimental piece was they poured hot chemotherapy inside me and rotated me around for 90 minutes like a rotisserie chicken, so that hot chemo could kill micro cancer. Now it's FDA approved, but it's supposed to be life extending. It's called the mother of all surgeries. I woke up in the ICU and I pressed the morphine button. I was breathing. And that was a massive surgery. And I have to tell you, moving forward, I am now considered no evidence of disease at this time. My 3rd year anniversary was September 19th. I am on my way to a 5-year remission. I got to keep stacking my scans and my blood tests. And I have lots of side effects. I have peripheral neuropathy. I have PTSD, chemo brain. It's a good excuse as well if I don't want to do something. But, and I visit the bathroom a lot. And so I am breathing. I am seeing my daughter not only graduate high school, not only graduate University of Michigan, I am now daring enough to put that goal out there. I am going to walk her down the aisle.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I'm going to do.
So what do you attribute this to? What do you attribute being able to beat this twice? Besides your sister being that miracle, and besides having your daughter as a miracle, what do you attribute this ability? I mean, it's because it's got to be something in your thought process, something in your spiritual nature. What is it that's kept you going?
All right. So again, there's not one answer. Medical technology contributed to that.
Yeah.
Okay. My worldwide prayer network and cheerleading network, that vibration came in. I took it all in, especially in cancer number 2. Listen, I'm one tough mother. All right. My mental toughness, I'm a tough guy.
And I have to imagine faith played a big role.
Absolutely. But I'm not super Orthodox religious. I'm Jewish, but I got to tell you,
I had a few conversations with God, and God looked down upon me very kindly. And I am still alive where others are not.
Yeah.
Okay. Others are going through chemo for life and treatment and other malaise. And I now get to inspire others and motivate and educate and teach people that you can get up from the darkest of times. And again, and this is why I said this originally, that I am blessed, I am grateful, and I am lucky. And I am very grateful I get out of bed every day. And you have to have that appreciation for that. So I'm still here. I have basically work to do. And the lesson I learned was not what I could actually get. You think about, what can I get? I should be selfish after this. It's not actually the case. It's what I need to give. I need to give and be an inspiration and teach the world and help others be able to lift themselves up, because you have to work about your self-care, your screenings, and then once you can get yourself on solid ground, you lift up others. You help those others that need lifting up. And I call this the shining brightly force multiplier. Together, we make this world a better place. There's so much negative in the world. Let's actually go help others and be a good neighbor and be a good friend and help the
Shine brightly.
And shine brightly to make the world a better place.
And
yes.
I understand that it was your great grandmother that instilled that, what do we want to call it? That
character trait,
by a story that is just another, you have so many riveting stories. It is just so cool. But when you were younger and you found a quarter, right? Isn't that where it all started?
It did. So my great grandmother, Bertha Budish, she was lived in a dirt floor and somewhere in Lithuania, Poland, Ukraine, and the Tsar there was collecting boys for his army, and her mother sent the boys to America, and because they had some distant relative there, and they made it, and they sent back ABC books and tickets for passage to come through, and she and her mother and her sister got stuck in Europe, but the mom and sister went on because they were testing for a trachoma, an eye test, and it was very contagious. So a 16-year-old girl is stuck in Belgium, and she was a seamstress, and she was a nanny, and this woman that she was a nanny for said, I'm going to go to America through Montreal, Canada. They're a little less stringent, and she did. But at 16 years old, for 2 years, she had to live on her own, and this little 5-foot Orthodox Jewish woman that spoke 7 languages made it to Boston, and she was the matriarch of our family, had 7 children, and she was tough as nails. Yeah. And she taught us so many stories. And the one story you're referring to is that we're walking to the butcher. She was Orthodox on a Saturday. She was taking care of us. We're maybe 5 or 6 years old. And I saw something ahead, and she was holding our hand pretty tightly, my twin sister and I, CJ. And I saw a quarter. I left her hand and she was mad. And I ran and picked up this shiny quarter. And I figured, oh my God, I'm going to the penny candy store. No, that wasn't happening. She took the quarter and said, hand it to me. And she sat there on the sidewalk and explained the lesson of tzedakah, of giving. She said, this quarter is not yours. This is found money. Found money goes into in a Jewish piggy bank called a tzedakah box, or a pushka for Yiddish. And that money is given to people less fortunate, those in need. And that lesson has been drilled into our family and many families to give charity. It means justice. And it's a beautiful lesson that I've carried for me. And we still do it today. I have tzedakah boxes around my home. And once they fill up, we take them and we decide which charity or cause we're going to give. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to heal the world.
That's the beginning of this understanding that, you don't get to keep it unless you give it away, right? You don't. And a lot of the stories in your book, and especially Surviving Cancer, is all about that.
It is. And so the lessons, so the book is really that the cancer chapters are hard, but this is a life lesson in living a resilient life and being able to take punches, get knocked down, get back up, celebrate family, celebrate our cultures, celebrate people that are not like you. And it's important to understand that we live in a melting pot of a world and a country and your own communities and your own neighbors. With COVID, we lost that. You didn't even get to know your neighbors anymore. You didn't get to see their kids play with your dog or go to the park. We've got to rebuild that. And part of that is the shining brightly, methodology that I speak to, that be able to make an understanding. because I want to go through the rest of the years that I have of understanding others and leading with kindness. That's the life that I want to be remembered for. And this legacy of a book is a blueprint for others to do that in their own way.
Wow.
That's
Well,
amazing.
it is amazing, Howard. I'm so glad you're okay. I'm so glad you have survived cancer twice and that you're here today to share your message with us and doing so much good in the world. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Glad that you were able to be on our show today.
Can I make one last remark, Jackie?
Absolutely.
All right,
We
so
have
this
we
is
have
my-
about 10 minutes left. There he is.
Okay.
Da-da-da.
There you-
So we're going to do this. We're going to do this. I want to shine brightly with you today because you're giving me this platform and stage to share together. You do beautiful things with the Speak Feed Lead project. I've heard the kids on the weakness of kindness and gratitude. Oh my God, they just knock your socks off with these nuggets of wisdom, beyond their years. And you work with them, Jackie. So it's a great thing. But I want to shine brightly with you today because the book ends on a high note. All right. So we have to have hope in this world. If you don't have hope, it gets very dark. It can get depressive. Bad things can happen. Hope is the currency, and sharing hope is that currency, like sharing a hug, which we couldn't do during COVID. We're starting to get back to that. Sharing love, sharing a meal, buying someone a cup of coffee and a random act of kindness. That is what hope is, what the fuel that gets us all through and makes us all a better place. So that's the shining message, is sharing hope. That's what we're going to do.
We still have a couple of minutes left, unless Jackie has to go. Are you on a tight schedule, Jackie?
Not too tight, but
Okay. And Howard, you're okay? Because
I'm great. Yeah.
So we didn't get to talk about it. You have some amazing stories, and I'm just blown away. And there's even more of the book that I could read. The stories just keep going. They're riveting. They really are. You did a nice job. But tell us about the process of creating this book, because that is kind of a cool way to do it. I think that in itself is inspiring for others to do it the exact same way. I mean, tell us the story. You just got to tell us.
So technology has played a significant impact in my life. I'm a Babson College, technology entrepreneur through Silicon Valley and IPOs, and now we're using Zoom as technology today. My editor, David Crum, who's a dear friend of mine, and he thought he was saying goodbye to me. He asked me out for coffee and a bagel, and or lunch, and that lunch turned into a couple hours, and he said, "Let's leave your legacy." And I was telling him stories, and he had topics on a napkin, and I was going to the bathroom quite a bit, and he said, "We already have like 10 things to pursue," and he said, "Do you want to write a book?" And I said, "I'll get back to you." And so I called him a few days later. I slept on it, and I said, "I have one request, and I'll write a book." And he said, "Only one?" I said, "Just one." I said, "I know that I am not a great writer. I know that grammar and punctuation, they're optional for me, but I'm a good speaker." I said, "If you will allow me to use Zoom and bring together the most influential family members, mentors, business people that impacted my life, and we can record them, and those recordings can become transcripts, and the transcripts can become chapters, and then we can put together a manuscript. If we can do that," he goes, "I'll write a book with."
And this was totally your idea, and you had not seen or heard this. I mean, what an amazing adventure, all in itself, in reviewing this timeline.
Right. So he said to me, "I'll get back to you. We've never done that before." We usually presented with either a manuscript that needs editing or needs improving, and he said, "We've never done that." And so we made a 1-year commitment to each other. And we said, it's going to take 1 year. Well, it took 3. And I've done over 239 recordings with David every Wednesday and more, but we invited over 158 people into these sessions. Now, the reason the book is interesting is that I'm sort of the MC and the maestro of the chapters, because there's many voices. So I'm not just talking at the reader. We're actually having discussions. And when you bring on your camp counselors that you haven't seen in 40 years, you don't remember everything exactly. So we were debating, did it happen this way? And when you talk to your doctors and from 33 years ago, we're trying to remember. when you bring on family members don't always agree. You know, did it happen this way?
The stories evolve, they change.
Yeah. You know, whose brisket, whose grandmother's brisket was better? We had the big debate right online, right then and there. And we talked about stories of going away with our grandparents to the Catskill Mountains, and my parents take the kids now to Algonquin Beach. There's family traditions in here, and culture that is all shared there. And you can reflect on your own culture if you're Italian or if you're Indian. Again, it all relates. It's so relatable. And so it's very exciting to be able to share that. And we did this all over Zoom, and it took us extra time. And that's why I will tell you this, that my editor, his staff at Front Edge Publishing and readthespirit.com, and my wife, who's a tremendous writer, and Emily, who had her own chapter, tremendous writer, they helped me. They polished me up. But these are all real stories that happen again. And we, you know, again, there's the tough stories of cancer, but most of them are inspirational. At the end of the day, there's a lesson to take home.
It's very cool.
Why do you feel it was so important to include so much about your family? I mean, they're obviously important to you, but is that part of having the hope, is knowing where you come from as well? Is that part of it for you?
So in writing a memoir, right, it had a beginning, right? And my family, you know, not only did I actually, you know, listen, we grew up modest. My dad worked 3 jobs. He burnt the Hostess cupcakes at the overnight shift one time. There's great stories. I went on the road with him. Family is the core to building a good life and a resilient life. Okay, not everyone is fortunate. If you're from an orphanage, you have to go then build that other ways and other means, and you can't. But family is integral to me. They love me unconditionally, even in the worst of times with health. And the reason I moved to Michigan with Emily was my twin sister moved here. My parents, it was closer for them. My in-laws are here, aunts and uncles, cousins. Family is core. And that's how the book, it talks about it. It's important. And that's how you get your values. That's where you learn these lessons of tzedakah and chesed, called kindness, and repairing the world. That was what was drilled into me, and I carry forth. And I hope my daughter will carry that forth, and my nieces and nephews will carry that forth. But we have such a short time on this planet. Let's embrace our family. And listen, I have a long way to go. When you go through what I've been through emotionally, physically, financially, relationships fracture. I have work to do on my own self and repairing relationships with others. We all do.
Wow. Thank you so much. You know, you're going to have to come back on the show, Howard, because I think there's so much more. We could have gone for another hour, 2 hours. I mean, you have such amazing stories. But one last question. Do you think you have another book in you?
Well, first of all, I learned the answer. The answer is yes. But so what we're going to do, so on my website, and as we have discussion guides, and the discussion guides are all the actual beginnings of new books. So I have Survivorship for Cancer and Life.
Wow.
I have Mentorship is Leadership and Entrepreneurship. And I have Interfaith Bridge Building, Getting to Know the Stranger. And these are all discussion guides. And I have about 16 questions, and I leave 2 blank for the reader to fill those in themselves. And I will have Shining Brightly on Mentorship, Shining Brightly. They'll be probably shorter books.
Wow.
Shining Brightly on Survivorship.
And these will be compilations.
It's part of a series, and we've already started. We have basic frameworks on those. And so I am going to bring on additional books. They won't be 300 pages with 62 pictures, but they will be books that actually even go further in building a resilient and hopeful life.
I'm sensing Jackie's gonna be headed your way with a chapter or a story or something. She's been on a roll, and I know she has some great stories too. So, and
she has her own resilient stories, and she's amazing. And I would come back whenever you'll have me. It's just so exciting, and as I said, I love the program. I'm now a big fan, and I'm watching each week as well. And thank you for having me on this very special day.
Showing up as you and being you, and sharing some amazing stories. Because you're right, there was a time when this would have all been a secret, right? It would have not been out in the open and out in the public. So thanks again.
And Todd and Jackie, you said we started being groovy. Just groovy today to be with you on my launch day of the book. So to have me on this special day, I'm grateful for you.
That's about all we have time for today. Jackie, any last, I mean, this was a cool show. You know what? You and I always have a cool show. I don't know how much more cooler we could do a show.
Well, this message is so important because whether it's cancer or whether it's a lost job or whether it's relatives that you lost through the pandemic, so I think everybody has had some trauma. Everybody has had to practice skills and resiliency. So this is a message that is appropriate for our time for every single person. Thank you, Howard, for bringing it forward. Really appreciate it. And congratulations. Today is your launch day. That's exciting.
Hey, that's pretty cool. Like I said, that's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you'll tell a friend about the show. Let them know, that Jackie and Todd, they have these cool guests. They have a cool show. They have cool questions, and it's just inspiring topics for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Lastly, check out the Shining Brightly book. And I mean, there's some inspiring stories. And please, please, please make it a great day because it's all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.